blundered in.
A word, a little nugget or word to describe what it's going to be like?
Oh, Carnage. 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 That was one of the worst programs I've ever seen. I need to cleanse my palate and watch the Sense Sphere. That Brendan really knows his stuff.
Oh, if only you did. If only you did. If only we could make you. If only that was possible, RTD. Instead of calling us everything under the sun. I'm sorry, but what do we not know about Doctor Who? What do we not know about entertainment? I sat there tonight and I've been very fair. I set up this channel 2 years ago. It is only 2 years, everybody. 2 years ago, I started this channel because I was looking forward to the Russell T Davies 2 era. I wasn't cynical at all. I was dying to see what would happen. And then, as you all know, the journey has been interesting. Early doors, I saw problems, as we all did. I won't repeat them now. But what I've just seen tonight, I cannot justify, I cannot defend. To me, that was almost a declaration of war on the Doctor Who fans. It had nothing to do with messaging or anything like that. That was utter tripe. That was not trying to entertain. That was lost. That was flotsam. That was driftwood of a script. I was extremely angry that so much time was being wasted on an inconvenience. I mean, I couldn't give a damn who Barclay was. Who the hell was he? They say he's an everyman. He was a drip. It was an absolute drip. And in the end, off he goes swimming with Flipper. Couldn't give a damn about that. Kate, we were hearing about her therapy. So what we had here was exposition, voiceover, commentary, on and on and on and on. Where was the action? I tell you what we're doing tonight with my panel is we're going through RTD's words on the video from the Whoniverse show, what he promised us in this spin-off and what he promised us in his finale. And I will throw the words up and I will ask the panel and yourselves whether he has delivered. As simple as that. We'll discuss the ratings. It was up against the Royal Variety Show. We will discuss whether whether this has saved Doctor Who. The Radio Times set that challenge. So at the moment, I have hello, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well, all things considered.
That was me being polite. I'm saving a lot. Jo would have been on everybody, but Jo, as soon as she saw it, turned ill. No, she didn't. She's ill anyway. Goldie's going to join us. He's just trying to get everything together. So at the moment, it's me and Mark. Now, we're going to start with the video clips in a moment, Mark. Don't worry. But Mark, go on then. Tell us. I've given my first gambit. What's your first gambit of what you've just seen?
Well, where do I start? I mean, all the way along, we've been told, it's not all right for the human race to, be throwing litter everywhere and all the rest of it. It's not okay to be offensive to anybody, but it is okay to draw a gun on somebody when you're walking along the beach. It's perfectly okay to do that and tell them to pick up a bottle. That was the concluding message that I took away from this series.
I know there's so much to talk about, everybody, and don't worry, Mark's mentioning one bit there. For example, I was making notes going, is RTD saying every country needs a junta, a militia, a military coup? Because there were certain sinister messages, because Kate was throwing her weight around in a way that is not to be approved of, I have to say. And as you said with the finale, no, I won't say any more about the finale because it's in our kind of opening credits, so to speak, right? So I'll get to it, Mark. Don't you worry. So here we go. He promised us Carnage. I promised you Carnage, and we can decide what what that was that we saw. Maybe he was being polite by saying Carnage. So here we go. Now, here we go. This is what he said. He said, keep watching at the very end as the titles roll. It's not the Doctor appearing. That doesn't happen. There's an in-story event. You've got to keep watching right to the end. And there's the most sensational scene right at the end. Now, let's start this off, Mark, and then I'll get your feedback, and I'll just enjoy also what the threads say, and then you'll get my version. Here we go.
Keep watching. Keep watching at the very end as the titles roll to the end, and there's the most sensational scene right at the end.
Go on then. It was sensational, Mark.
Well, if it was sensational, I was waiting for the further credits to roll to think, well, is there something else coming? Am I missing something here? I was honestly thinking there must be something else round the corner, but I didn't really know what to say with that kind of, you're building people's hopes up that, there's just going to be something so spectacular that you just can't miss it. And what do you say? I mean, is this the new era of public information films that we used to get in the 70s? Pick up your litter, or I'll shoot you there on the spot.
Look, keep Britain tidy sounded decent to me in the 70s, but yeah, pick that bottle up or I'll shoot you was a slightly different version. Is he really? Look, there's an awful lot to unpack from plot and everything, because you've won the war, and we have to not be proud of ourselves, Mark. But I have to say, they threw a whole planet of litter at us episodes ago. Those anchors. Titanic landing, it must have killed thousands of people. So they pretty much declared war then. Then they nicked all our dogs, and you don't do that to the Brits. So I'm sorry, but there's a few things they've done and declared war there. And then, okay, Severance do a virus, and then they go, you won. And then, there's Shirley in a little wheelchair saying, we can't be proud of ourselves. Well, they really were literally throwing bait at us, weren't they?
Well, I was, all the way along, we've been said, this is going to be a war. This is absolutely going to be a war. And like we said last week, well, where is this war? Where is it coming from? And you think, right, okay, the building everything up for the final episode. Surely in the final episode, you are going to get something spectacular. You're going to have humans fighting sea devils, and it's going to be like the Poseidon adventure. And I was just kept watching this last episode thinking, yes, and where it was just, where did it go? It was just Carnage is the right word for it. Carnage is the right word for this series. Carnage is the right word for the end of this particular iteration of the Doctor Who universe.
Well, I can see Goldie's just arrived, and everybody can see the three amigos are here. So just to warm Goldie up, good to see you, Goldie. But just to warm you up, we're just about to go through RTD's words to judge that episode and judge the series. So talk about hoist by your own petard. But Goldie, just to kind of feed you a hell of a shot here, I'm going to say you've been quite decent all the way through, saying you're going to be fair. Let's see how it finishes. Let's see how it resolves. So we are really dying to hear what you will say tonight. And on the other score is, I am pretty angry as a Doctor Who fan that the money was siphoned, as I've said before, but now when I've seen the delivery, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely disgraceful. Now I can judge the whole RTD era, Goldie. I've seen 2 seasons, Christmas specials, the lot, and now I've seen this 5-episode spin-off, and I am very concerned if the BBC thinks this is called entertainment for people with a brain. Goldie, hiya.
Hello, I'm actually pretty impressed with myself because last week I guessed the ending and I was totally correct. I will say, as you've mentioned, I've been someone who, not necessarily been defensive, but I've been willing to give this a chance, and I have. And I will say this episode is by far probably my least favorite. And I think ultimately the reason why is because it's so underwhelming. Now, I have always, going into this, I haven't expected a sort of big blockbuster scale of action, because when you're a Doctor Who fan, you have to kind of manage your expectations. You have to know it's not going to be like something you see in the cinema. But I do think that there was a bit of mismanagement when promoting this show. The things we were promised didn't exactly follow through. And this episode in particular does follow the formula of RTD finales. He always manages to do a good build up, but unfortunately the execution during the conclusion doesn't make everything feel worthwhile. And that's something that goes back all the way back to his first season back in 2005. He always has this ability to get you excited for the prospect of what a finale could bring, but then ultimately it just seems to end without any proper setup. Like the whole, I know you guys probably haven't gone into specifics yet, or maybe you have, but the whole thing of, right, let's go to the meeting room, we need to have this big talk with Homo Aqua, and then it's like, okay, the war's over. It's just over, but that's it. You're like, what? Did I miss something? Did I accidentally fast forward 20, 30 minutes?
Oh, God help anyone who went to the loo. I mean, they come back and they go, it's over. I've just been watching this for 2 weeks. We could have told you, all you casual punters out there, this is how it works. Now, this is how we're playing it, Goldie. So I'll show you. All we've missed so far is this.
Keep watching. Keep watching at the very end as the titles roll to the end, and there's the most sensational scene right at the end.
Right, Goldie, the only thing is we haven't got your final thoughts on that. He says the final credit sequence when Kate said, pick that bottle up, or basically, or I'll shoot you. That was sensational, apparently.
Yeah, I was quite pissed off about that because throughout this week, I've been conversing with loads of Doctor Who fans. We've all been asking each other, right, what do we think this amazing scene at the end is going to be? Everyone's been theorizing perhaps it's a lead into next year's Christmas special, or maybe it's some other project that's going on. And my brain's been quite scrambled when I've had to give my thoughts on what it could be, because I've literally had no idea. And I wouldn't have guessed that, because I think a lot of the topics and how they're handled in this series, contrary to what many other people think, I think it's quite nuanced, and I think it's done quite well. But that scene at the end is literally right, if you haven't understood everything from the past 5 hours of all these collective episodes, we're going to just say it to you. And Kate does it in the most ham-fisted way, pointing the gun, you will pick it up. And it's like, right, okay, we've watched 5 episodes. We get the message. We get the humans shouldn't pollute. And then right at the end, RTD goes, right, screw it. Well, no, forget all this storytelling, forget all this nuance. Let's just say to the audience. It reminded me a lot of Orphan 55 at the end of that episode when Jodie literally looks at the camera and says, if you don't stop all this pollution, you are screwed. That's literally that scene, but with Kate.
I mean, good to see Drake. Somebody was saying he's been watching us for a while and he wanted to say hello at last. Mad Mackham has said hello with a gift. RTD's terrible writing ended up giving a message counter to what the idiot meant. The result was when the human race is threatened, it wins. I have to say, we were talking about the messaging at the end there with the, Kate becomes the, Orinoco or Great Uncle Bulgaria, the Wombles. Meanwhile, Barclay's off with Flipper. But my concern was, I mean, it's great. Terrible writing's not in it. I didn't know which direction to go in. Was I supposed to be bothered about Kate's psychotherapy? Was I supposed to be bothered that Barclay was crying an awful lot all the way through? Was I upset that when Barclay met his ex-wife in a pub, I thought this is where we are now because all the pubs are shut in. There's nobody in there. We saw that one. It just went on and on, and I kept thinking, will you just show me some action? Because this is just commentary. It's just dialogue after. And remember in Stolen Earth, the Subwave network? Well, we had it again with the Accord. I'll send a coded message and we hope that the Doctor sees it. It's all that kind of vibe, isn't it? And I thought, you've done this again and again and again. Honestly, RTD, have you got any more ideas? Are you going to just squat like Sutek on the TARDIS on the throne of Doctor Who? Or are you going to let somebody else have a go? And if it's Pete McTighe, I've got quotes from him tonight, and I am seriously worried, as I've already said in one of my streams. Thank you very much, Mad Mackham, but I'll show the next clip now and get the vibe off both the lads here.
Keep watching at the very end as the title roll
Yeah,
to the
we've
end
watched
of the
it now, mate.
sensational scene right at the end. Wait for the last 10 minutes. Absolutely astonishing.
Incredible.
It's incredible, says Pete McTighe, and it's astonishing, says RTD. The last 10 minutes. Mark, the last 10 minutes, I'll just remind people, the last 10 minutes, I think there was a crack in the water tank, and it was, I tell you what, if that water tank started cracking, and he said they'd done research and science and stuff, I think the water would be out like an absolute shot because of the pressure. Not crack. And then Barclay, the prat, is just staring at it. I mean, if you want an everyman hero, don't make him thick. He's just staring at the glass. I want my... For the whole series, people have been laughing at me going, I want my puppy. Where's my puppy? And now it's like, where's Salt? I want Salt. I want more Salt. Where's she gone? It's like bloody pathetic. So anyway... This stupid man who represents humanity, is our ambassador, is staring at a fish tank about to explode. And then the woman who slagged him off in episode 1 says, yeah, I went to St. Andrews, you were out. Suddenly she stood by him. She knows it's going to kill. Then some stupid, dizzy reporter suddenly goes, what do you think? What do you think of the war over? And I thought, do you know what? This is just like... CBeebies has started. This is CBeebies Doctor Who. I have to say, I felt as though this was baby dialogue. Why would a reporter be in there when the glass tank is going to explode? And then after that, just to do a quick summary and let poor Mark in, I think this was the last 10 minutes. Then we had a priority 1 message for Kate, and she didn't want to take it because she was talking to Shirley. Oh, and they're having a chit chat over coffee and some hobnobs. And as they were talking, suddenly she said, priority 1, it's Barclay. And Barclay's obviously got some medical condition. She takes him to the sea. She takes him swimming. That's nice. It's a lovely shot. And there's horrible, nasty protesters. And she saves him from them, takes him to the sea. He suddenly grows some gills or fins or whatever. Who cares? And he goes swimming. And I felt so pleased. I thought, oh, it's so nice, this. And then we had the... Right, okay, Mark. That's in case those people who are watching us did not watch it. I'm going to calm down. Mark, was it the last 10 minutes, was it astonishing?
Well, I mean, that is one quote. I'll give you another quote. My other half, who is a casual viewer of anything Doctor Who related, went into the war between the land and the sea with, I would say, very open-minded. Watched the first couple of episodes and thought, oh, this is pretty decent. I'll stick with it. The quote I got even before the end was, I'll choke if I have to watch any more of this. I'm off. So, yeah, I mean, if this was designed to entice in the casual viewer, I can only go by what I've just heard, and it clearly didn't work in that respect. In terms of it being action-packed and sensational, and you're talking about a crack in the tank, I dare say that Sophie Aldred's unbeknown accident when they were filming Battlefield, where she was yanked out of a cracking water tank. At that point, it was so action packed. It ended up in a health and safety education video for BBC employees. It was that great. I very much doubt that Barclay will supersede that in any way.
Yeah.
And
Well, obviously,
I'll go so far as to say that if I think back to the Sea Devils and the culmination of that, the final episode, I would say that was a darn sight more action packed. You know, they pulled the stops out for that with the Royal Navy lending a hand. You had, you know, pyrotechnics going off on beaches, and you look at what they achieved on, I dare say, a fraction of the budget that was spent on the war between the land and the sea. A vastly more sensational and action-packed finale.
one of the quotations I've got later on, it's at the end of the video segment, is when RTD talks about the 1972 Sea Devils and how much he loves it, but then he slags off the plot really by saying, really, the Sea Devils come out of the water, do a bit of shooting, go back in the water, and we wanted to do more. We can judge on whether that is what was delivered, because I feel as though we didn't get a war, we didn't get anything. Anyway, obviously, although this is, we had talking for the whole show. Obviously, Sam DeMay here says, "Can we shut up the horse? Thank you." I was thinking that about Barclay. Can you stop crying, please? Do we have to go through a whole therapy session with Kate? But I'll take your point. We've got two panelists. But you know, I'm having therapy now, Sam DeMay. She had hers, Barclay had his. Goldie, how's your therapy going?
I'm just... Here's the thing. After the reality war, I was properly frustrated, and that took all my energy out of me. I was venting to loads of different people. But with this, it's less anger and more just kind of... And I still really do like the first 4 episodes, and there are parts of this I do like as well. But again, one of the main elements to a story is how it all wraps up, and you know, where everything is taken from the conclusion, and it's very underwhelming with this. So I'm just kind of left going, oh well, that's a shame. That's really what I feel more than anything.
Goldie, honestly, on the last 10 minutes, which I've tried to explain, Sam DeMay hopefully realizes I have to explain, because an awful lot of people watch us haven't watched it. Goldie, what did you think of the last 10 minutes? How would you describe what you saw? Did it successfully finish it? Was it astonishing? Was it anything else?
Well, the one thing I will say is that, as I predicted in the other streams, I did think that the series would end with Barclay and Salt going off together, and that's exactly what happens. And I don't really hate that ending. It's quite generic, and we've seen it in various other stories, not just science fiction. The idea of these two people from different worlds coming together, and then they forge their own path. That, you know, is something a lot of people were guessing, and you know, we were right. But when it comes to the war itself and how it just ends, like, we all throughout the series we have this build up to severance. What is severance? And then it's literally just explained, oh, they just killed all this, they just killed all the Aqua kind. That was it. There was no build up to that. Something was teased, and they did the payoff without even doing any of the proper build up. So that really bothered me. It was just another MacGuffin that RTD put in there so he could write himself into a corner and then just fetch it and go, nope. It does make sense because I referenced it in a previous episode, but we only referenced it. We didn't pay any attention on it, but I referenced it, so I didn't cheat, and that's what RTD did, and he's done that with a lot of his finales. And yeah, that post-credit scene was absolutely ridiculous. Here's the thing: I kind of feel like a fool because I was kind of buying RTD's whole promotion of it. Oh, it's this massive sensational scene, everyone's gonna love it, it's gonna be fabulous, which is what he always says with everything. And this time I was thinking, right, okay, it may be something different, it may be something exciting, and it's the most bland, predictable thing ever. And what makes it worse is, as I've said, I think a lot of the messaging in this and how they've incorporated the sci-fi elements, it's very nuanced, and I do like it. But then that final scene, it's like he just went, right, why even bother? Let's just say what we want the story to represent for those dumb people in the back who haven't got the past 5 hours.
Well, let's have a look. Davey B96. I'll try and bring a lot of the thread in. Obviously, we've got space for it. Just watched it. Kate's not doing a good job at being a good side character, and it didn't feel like a full story. No actual fight between the humans and Sea Devils, and that post-credit scene was just, yeah. Yes, Kate, we will come up with Kate. Like I said, my video segments take everything that RTD and Pete McTighe have promised us, and I'll just throw them back and see what the lads think. But just to be fair for a second, and it is just to be fair, having watched the 5 episodes, I did see where there was promise. And if they'd focused on these areas and doing more of this, I think it could have done something. This is only a minute, everybody. Bear with me. But I think if you saw a lot more of this is my Benjamin Cook edit, this, I think, would have been much more entertaining.
Something's leaking, bloody hell.
Careful.
What is it?
I don't know. I don't know.
What the hell? Oh, Jesus!
We come in peace.
Does the word severance mean anything to you?
This is for you.
So I think if you'd focused on a lot of that type of action, I love seeing that Sea Devil at the beginning come out the water to take it one of its own back. I love the idea that they could, you know, do kind of guerrilla warfare. All that looked exciting. Mad Mackham, thank you. Where was the science in this sci-fi show? Well, later on, he's proud of talking about gender fluids, fish, and all the rest of it. But I think it was pretty weak, and the algae talk to each other. But Mark, do you see what you saw? 5 episodes as is. I prefer the action that I was showing just a moment ago. Where do you stand?
I mean, I'm trying to look at positives. I'm trying to look at redeeming features about this series. One thing I would say that I would say about the finale, which I thought did deserve some credit, is looking at the design of the Sea Devils, looking at Salt's design when she was in the sea. I thought that was fabulous. I thought there was perfection to that, to the point where when the dead Sea Devils who had been poisoned were laid out in mortuary slabs, I thought that looked reasonably realistic, to the point where I thought, I really, really wish that we could have had a bit more texture to who are Aquakind, who are the other Sea Devils, apart from a couple of spokespeople coming out of a fish tank in a grand hall every episode. I wanted there to be more layers to that species, to see who are the good guys, who are the bad guys, who are the in-between guys on both sides. If you'd had something a bit more textured like that, I could have felt just a bit of, this is quite a sad state of affairs if we've got Sea Devils that are being just killed in viral warfare.
I think if written it more like Malcolm Hulk did, like we had the layers of the Silurians, that sort of thing. They weren't all, some were scientists, some were against the humans and all the rest of it. Instead, we had just the humans being like that. Now, to bring Goldie in, I mean, Julie here, good to see you. The thing that drives me mad is all the bits that get mentioned, never to be mentioned again. The pearls, salt turning male. I mean, there were loads of moments, weren't there, Goldie, which we saw if you committed to the 5 episodes, but they didn't get payoff.
Yeah, and I actually forgot about those particular things before that person in the comments actually mentioned them, because, yeah, none of that was really explained at all. The whole thing with the pearls in their throat and salts being able to change form, none of that comes into effect. It's a setup for something that never is paid off. And in general, I think this series highlights why RTD needs script editors. He needs people above him because, to his credit, I'm not going to just sit here and trash the man for eternity. He does have a lot of good ideas. But the problem is that when he is given full control and he's given the reins to explore everything and there's no oversight, he always either forgets something or just loses the mark halfway through. He starts on an upwards trajectory and you think something's going to be interesting, but then he just goes off into all these different areas where he doesn't need to. That post-credit scene didn't need to be there. You could have cut out that 1 to 2 minutes and had more scenes explaining other stuff. And as we've mentioned in previous streams, I don't really see why Kate needs to be in this. Her entire part could have been omitted and we could have had more explanations to the Sea Devils. We could have seen more of what we was actually promised with this series. And again, I think the one word to describe how I feel is just very underwhelmed. Underwhelming is the prime descriptor of this episode in particular. It's just so underwhelming, and I kind of feel robbed of my time, to be quite honest.
Which would you have preferred? More focus on my little clips version where you saw Sea Devil action, you saw Sea Devil guerrilla movement, you saw Sea Devils looking warriorish, that kind of war element. Would you have preferred more of that or what you got?
We absolutely needed more of the action, more of the menace that the Sea Devils or the Homo Aqua bring into the episodes at the beginning, like when we see them sucking humans beneath the ground and drowning them and that sort of thing. We really needed more of that. We needed more of a hot war rather than the cold war that we were given.
There's some great points in the thread. I'll keep an eye on them. Matt, can I just point out, they created that pool of water in the cave, episode 1, to get that body back. They must have gone through bedrock, so they could have come up anywhere. No need for the glass tank and tube. There are so many. Anyway, I'm going to save myself because RTD can do it for me. So, here we go. So we had the sensational bits, we had the astonishing bit, and here's the next bit.
Seen it? What do you think? Give adjectives.
Tense.
Here we go.
You've seen it. What do you think? Give adjectives.
Tense.
Oh yeah.
Dark.
Mysterious.
I was looking for good.
Yeah, we wanted it to stand alone as its own show, didn't we?
Oh, Carnage.
I'll give you one. Woof.
Where do you go with this? Have you got a word for it, Mark?
Increasingly, the word I have for it is irresponsible. And I hate to keep dwelling on that post-credit sequence, but I feel that was quite irresponsible in some ways because, if we're trying to give a commentary on who we are as a species, what our flaws are and things, let's face it, we're living in a very uncertain time at the moment. And I hate that it left a bad taste in my mouth to think, are we really saying to people it is okay to brandish a weapon on somebody purely for the sake of putting forward a message about how we are irresponsible with the environment and all the rest of it, the more I think about it, it just really grates on me. And I just wholly think that was an irresponsible message to give out purely for what visually it showed. I mean, for example, if I was a parent who, you know, my child was a Doctor Who enthusiast, and you think, okay, you can stay up a little bit later to watch a more adult version of it. Okay, it's got a message for you. Would I be okay with my child seeing a scene like that with a gun-toting Kate Lethbridge-Stewart at the end? Okay, the man throwing the bottle on the beach was a bit of an idiot anyway, but is that really what we've come to in our lives?
My concern is, and I don't want to be on the right or the left on this, I just want to say the truth, and it's what you're saying, Mark, which is the message can't be right that you resort to violence instead of educating. But if educating is done by gunpoint, it's not education. That is actually propaganda. That is forcing a position. And I can't approve of writing like that. That is appalling. Nobody can approve of a government or a writer who thinks that to win an argument, you threaten violence or you threaten death. And it just means you've lost the argument. But all the way through UNIT, Kate had threatened the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. She threatened him, I'll find you, and there will be a reckoning. In other words, do as you're told. We cannot, even in a daft sci-fi, allow a message that the military trumps democracy. And H.G. Wells, George Orwell, they will be turning in their grave at this. This is appalling. H.G. Wells, Time Machine, War of the Worlds and all the rest of it. You've got George Orwell with 1984. He made it very, very clear. He'd seen Burma. He'd seen certain countries where authoritarianism won. How the hell can we allow a message where UNIT threatens all the democratic governments? She should be off on the sick, by the way. Let's remember that.
Threaten the therapist.
Threatens the therapist, says you had an affair. Oh God, BITCH, I think. And then at the end threatens somebody because he drops a bottle. I tell you what, talking about, the problem's big, love. That one bottle's not going to change much. Anyway, Goldie, where do you stand on this?
As I say, I think it's just underwhelming. This fifth episode in particular just feels directionless. It feels like there are some semblances of good ideas here, but they're just surrounded by a lot of nonsense, really. And as you've already brought up, there's a lot of things that still haven't been explained, and you're just like, what? You feel robbed. You're like, come on, Russell, you've promised me all these things and you're just not delivering. But that is something that I should have expected from RTD. I was a fool to think that this show would be different. I still want to be fair and say that I do really like the first 4 episodes and aspects of the 5th episode, but this ending really does just just throw everything off. And to do with Kate, again, I don't think she needs to be in this. Gemma Redgrave is still bland and has the personality of a wooden plank. Kate hasn't been redeemed with this show. She's just more annoying. I did think at the start of the episode that if they did lean into the whole, right, you have this leader who has all this pressure on her, she's lost someone close to her and she's going to break down, I thought, okay, that's, something you can lean into there. But I was looking at Kate thinking, right, okay, she's in a bad state of mind, and in some way this is going to be addressed and it's going to be resolved. But RTD with that final scene is basically saying, oh no, she's right. She's right to just be a loose cannon and just doing whatever. There's no kind of moderation there. It's like, yo, so you think Kate is going through a tough time and that she's become reckless? Well, that's a good thing. And you're like, what? No, it's not a good thing. Like, someone who's in charge of units, which even she says is above all the other power structures, whether that's the government or the military, you do need a level-headed person there.
You do. Your argument cannot be that I don't know. So let's take a chill pill for a second, and then we're gonna go. I've not given my word yet. My God, I've done plenty though.
We will take questions from the ambassador.
I wish I wish we could give questions to the to the writer of this show. So this is just us starting, and obviously I asked the lads about their questions. Some in the thread, I've been putting them up. Your description, I just call it fly tipping on a grand scale. Fly tipping. It was bits of plot, bits of facts he'd gleaned off Google, bits of everything. It was bitty anyway, but with the two writers, it just seemed. I can see Goldie trying to be fair, but I'm trying to be objective. But I have to say, it did not deliver in part 5. Therefore, the other parts are put into question because that we were teed up for the wrong thing. The title was incorrect. That was misleading. Some would call that clickbait if that was a thumbnail for a YouTube channel. It was up against. You've got to remember, it was up against something. The Royal Variety Performance. So you'll get a juggler, you'll get a musician, you'll get Westlife, you'll get this, that, and the other. You'll get bits of stuff, but it'll be what it says on the tin. If you want to tune into the Royal Variety Performance, you'll get some variety. Tune into this, and you don't get what it delivers. So it just fly tipped a whole load of blah. Here's a bit of a message. Here's a point. Here's some budget left. Here's a bit of classic Who monster changed. Here's Kate Stewart, and we've never known what to do with. It just felt like fly tipping, emptying the bin in 5 episodes and hoping something stuck. It looks fabulous. Now, I was saying before we started, Mark, wasn't I? It does look expensive in the way that, the Majorca shots have been used wisely. The naval shots have been used wisely. They'll have to have paid for them this time. You were talking about 1972 when they got a nice freebie. And the home at Aqua are fine. I wish they weren't the Sea Devils, but, that they were fine. I have no problem with that. So I agree with what you were saying there. Yeah, that's all I can say is the underwater scenes, they were good, but so what? The plot has to hold.
Yeah, I think that's the frustrating and disappointing thing about watching this. You're watching it with like you say, you see the scale. The scale. There is ambition there in. Certainly the montage you were showing before of the select bits of what we've seen in previous episodes, there was some real potential there, and visual spectacle isn't enough. Storytelling, a good story doesn't matter what the plot, what the budget is, or the budget doesn't mean diddly squat unless you got a robust story that is credible and believable. Could be a little bit sensational. We could go with that if it just paid off. But visual spectacle doesn't deliver a long-lasting piece of satisfaction. I think everything that they're saying about, it looks fabulous, I completely agree with it. It does look fabulous, but unless the storyline holds it all together, you may as well throw it back into the sea.
We are going to try our best, everybody. It's buffering at the moment, so we just continue for now. So we'll continue. That's why some will have a bit of audio issues. We'll keep going through. I've got video bits and all the rest of it. So Goldie, where do you stand on fabulous ocean scenes? Then we're going to get to some nitty gritty. Don't worry.
Well, I absolutely agree with Mark, and this is something that I've said throughout these live streams, which is that Dylan Holmes Williams has shown himself to be a very competent and creative director, and how he's used wildlife, he's used the natural landscapes to craft stunning shots, and yeah, that is deserving of praise. But at the same time, you can't just have some good looking images on the screen. You do need to have the characterization and story to go alongside it, and in this episode those elements have fallen short. So I can't really put this episode up on a pedestal because it looks fantastic, because I can go to Google and look up loads of ultra 4K beautiful images, and I can just look at those instead, if that's how this episode is meant to be judged by RTD and Pete McTeague. So yeah, it looks amazing. I just wish that, you know, we had a bit more of a brilliant story to go alongside it.
Well, this is the thing I'll keep asking. You know, the answer is it's made to entertain, and it's made to get punters in. These are the overnights from the first weekend, as we all know. These were the overnights for the second weekend, as we know. I'll be doing another live rating show on Tuesday, hopefully with John. I wanted to compare episode 5 to episode 3 to episode 1, to be fair here, because it's the same time slot. So you can see 8:30 till 9, it went from 3.3 to 2.4. And then the week later, it went from 5.62, or should we say from 2.6. And it went down and down and down until it went to about 1.7. So I was going to, just for a second, lads, I was going to be cheeky and do this. Right, so ratings. What do you reckon? Dead quickly, Mark, and me and John will discuss it on Tuesday and see if you're right. Now, it's up against the Royal Variety Performance, and I checked due diligence. Last year, the overnights for the Royal Variety were 3 million. In 2023, it's 3.5. The year before, 5.6. So that's the competition, okay? You've just seen my two charts there. So here we go. Just one more time. It went from 3.3 to 2.4. Those are 15-minute breakdowns for episode 1. And then obviously last week, episode 3 went down by another million or so, if you can see, from 2.6 to 1.7. What do you reckon? What's your prediction?
I'll be very generous and say 1.3 million, because I think people will be more interested in doing the Christmas shopping, quite frankly.
Okay, 1.3. I'll say mine in a minute. Goldie?
Well, this episode is special from the others in the sense that it isn't a double episode, you know, launch. There's only a single episode. So, and we've seen with all of them, I think the part ones have all been above 2 million, and the part twos all have been like around 1.5, 1.6. So I'm wondering, what side does this single episode fall on? I'm thinking it's going to be a little bit above 2 million. I could be wrong. I'm just thinking it may just sort of follow that trend that we've seen, that the first episode and this episode has aired at the same time as the other part one. So I'm thinking just a bit above 2 million.
I'm going to say about 1.85, 1.9. So there we go. We'll know on Tuesday. Me and John will be back on that. So let's get back to what RTD said. I'll get back into position. Oh, he has plenty to say, doesn't he? Let's get into there. So he talks about the fabulous ocean scenes, and now we're going to come to the next bit. Here we go. Right. Okay. Let's get this and...
Incredible set pieces, particularly Empress Hall.
Yeah.
What was that like to build?
It's the most insane set I've ever been in, really. It's he just
That crack in the wall was my idea.
Yeah.
There's great things to come in that hall. It's very exciting.
So it was worth it for Empress Hall. exciting scenes in Empress Hall, and you know, he did the crack bit. I mean, honestly, Mark. After this one, by the way, just before Mark comes in, just so everybody knows, after this, we're going to have a big argument about the cost of this and the number of extras, because RTD goes big on this. He thinks it changes the whole thing. Go on, Mark, on that, sorry.
Well, to be fair, Stephen Moffat created a big crack in Amy Pond's wall, and that was way more exciting than the crack in this big conference hall. Yeah, and what can I say? What's going to be my lasting legacy? I created a great big crack in a big hall, and no one noticed. I mean, to be honest with you, I think that whether it comes down to limitations on budget, I think that particular scene, that particular location was incredibly overused throughout the episodes. I think if it had to be used, I think it could have been done in a bit more of a clever way. But yeah, it was just, here we are in the conference room again and again and again. And I think that's probably because we're waiting for this so-called war to turn up. And it feels like, why are you taking us back into the conference room again?
Yeah, and I'll hear what Goldie said, and then don't worry, Mark, because the Empress Hall was built and so outstanding because of what he says next about making it look expensive. So Goldie, just regarding this, and then I'll show you his explanation. And he sets us up with a proposition about whether we go the American way or the British way. So it's going to be an interesting one in a minute about how this was presented. So Goldie, just on this at the moment.
Well, the scene at the end in the hall, again, it felt unnecessary. I thought that we'd moved past the whole negotiations phase. I thought this episode was going to see everything come into effect. But then, no, we have to go back to the room only to be told, right, the war's over. Humanity's won. That's it. And it's a big exposition dump. It doesn't have the impact I think Russell wanted. I mean, Russell may be impressed by a crack in the wall. You know, he's there like, we had a crack in the wall. It was so fabulous. If you look at the wall, there's a massive crack. But no one else cares apart from him. Like, bloody hell, this guy. It's just, all these things are just passion projects for him. Just for him and his mates, and no one else cares. Yeah, the whole scene, it's just forgettable.
It's a hall, isn't it? It's sci-fi. It's a hall. You know, I'd be impressed if it was a draconian hall or something different, or a Peladonian throne room, but it's a hall on Earth. And as Lee Smith earlier said, Goldie, you could have just got a place. But by the way, Goldie, what happened to Rust? Good points, Stephen O'Neill. What happened to Rust?
Another forgotten plot element.
Mark, we Rust is no problem ever again. It's okay. It's not going to be a problem. Tony Farrell, by the way, Mark, says this. To be fair, from the clips you've shown, Brendan, it does look good. Would I be right in saying that it was a triumph of style over substance? Well, I would say that because I think the production values you can see. And as Goldie said, some of the direction is great. The setting, some of the effects. But yeah, so you can make it look good. I think they've just focused, in my respect, on the wrong things. But Mark, style over substance?
Yeah, I mean, we clearly missed out on the Ewok party at the end with the Sea Devils and everybody dancing together because they didn't get the memo about Accord and that they were all going to have a nice land and sea beach party somewhere. I was kind of imagining that. But yeah, style over substance. Yeah, I just feel that there's. I'm completely lost for words, really.
Well, don't worry. I'll keep us moving because we've got plenty to talk about. Don't worry. You will have plenty to say in a minute. Don't worry.
Incredible set pieces, particularly Empress Hall.
Yeah.
What was that like to build?
Now I'm showing this, and then we're leading on to the extras because he makes a point about the expense. This is where the money went.
It's the most insane set I've ever been in, really. It's yeah, he just
that crack in the wall was my idea.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
Great things to come in that hall. It's very exciting. The thing I always wanted to do, the profound difference between British drama and American drama is the number of extras. American dramas have 100 and 200 extras in it, so I created that set absolutely insisting you've got 150 people on that every day. But actually, if you spend money on extras, it really, really pays off. And that hall is in all 5 episodes.
I mean, honestly, there's a big thing here. As Doctor Who fans, and first of all, we are used to low budget. And I don't think it suffers from that. And I will make the argument, I don't need to see a million Daleks either in CGI. Give me 3 or 1. So I don't get this argument, Goldie. He's made an argument here. He's made a pitch. He's made a decision as the showrunner to spend the money on, he said, 150 extras. And he compared it to the British version would be about 30. Now, I really don't know. If he says the Empress Hall is where you see the budget, number 1 in the set design, and then 2, there were 150 people in that room, and therefore it looked glossy and expensive. And I'm thinking, but it was a war between the land and the sea. If you had 150 extras fighting, or something like that. But honestly, Goldie, what do you think to his argument?
Well, he's kind of telling on himself, really, because he's basically saying that the British way of how we do productions is wrong and that we should look to a more Americanized way, which has never been the solution. If you look at Torchwood Miracle Day, that's an absolute, mess because of the fact it's a bunch of Americans trying to recreate this British show by taking the characters over to America, and the two things don't blend. And most fans of Doctor who are American will say that what they like about it is how the productions are handled differently, how it isn't everything isn't this like big bombastic set pieces with 200 people. It's properly restrained, and it's just a few characters, and that's all that matters, because a story is all about how the plot is affecting the relationship between these characters and how everything's moving on. So he's kind of telling on himself there by saying that, right, the way we've done things is rubbish. Let's do a more American way, just because we can, not because it's better, just because we can. And it's ridiculous. And I think how this show would have benefited is if RTD's attention was more on this than the main show. What he should have done is, for the 2 seasons of Gatwa's stuff, done the season premieres and have done the finales, but then brung in more writers, so there's more variety. Nearly every episode of Gatwa's run was written by Russell, which is ridiculous. If you go back to his first run, it's actually surprising how few episodes he actually wrote, which shows that, he should have brought in more people. So we had different styles of storytelling, and a lot of the episodes written by other people were ones that people actually found a lot of positives in. So he should have done that, and then he could have properly balanced his time between Doctor Who and this show. So, it's a huge, his ego is his downfall, and that's why everything in the past few years has been rubbish, because it's all about him. It's all about what he wants. It's all about how he can benefit himself.
This is what I mean. We've come into a pickle. I mean, we'll have RTD defenders out there. I started off 2 years ago being not an advocate for him. I'm not an advocate for anybody, but I was a fan of his earlier era. So, win-win after the Chibnall era, I was up for it. But my God, I soon soured when I actually just saw what was being delivered. And I just felt, for so many reasons, it was substandard, it was hodgepodge, it was misdirected. And I mean that not by director, I just mean, what is our focus? Breaking the fourth wall, musicals, comedy. Even in the adjective section, when they were asked, how would you describe this spin-off? And they said dark, funny. They listed something. I thought, why are you obsessed? They were talking about how when those 2 big fish were seen, that people who watched the first 2 episodes, the Radio Times and all the media, they all laughed. And they said, oh, we got a laugh. And I'm thinking, what are you trying to do with this expensive budget? Comedy? Or are you trying to do something serious and gritty? I don't think you can necessarily... I don't know. I just think it was caught between two stools. I actually do think Doctor Who, the last two seasons, and this spin-off is actually, and this is why Disney left. Remember, I did a stream on this from the leak, and my source said it was correct, and then my other source said it was correct. That Disney found with their demographics and all their data that the show made by RTD was missing any key audience. It was grabbing bits of them, but it was not grabbing anybody in particular. It was falling as average. In some ways, it was seen as too niche, and in some other ways, nobody knew what it was trying to be. And do you know what? You know, lads, Disney did not understand what this was. Is this a musical? Is this comedy? Is this light-hearted? Is this serious? They just didn't know what it looked like. They thought they were buying David Tennant Doctor Who. Then they got this, and they didn't know what they were getting. And so I think that's been the problem. And I think that's explained by the ratings. So here we
100 and 200 extras in it. So I created that set, absolutely insisting you put 150 people on that every day. But actually, if you spend money on extras, really, really pays off. And that whole, it's in all 5 episodes.
The Homo aqua are the kind of traditional sea devils that we see. Salt is Homo amphibium. And the Homo aqua, that's their nickname, that's not their...
They're all kind of busking titles because it's an emergency.
Yeah.
And like Homo aqua isn't a real title. In the way they gave the Sea Devil's name, that was just someone who was driven mad by them saying, sea devil! So we're kind of playing with that all the way through.
Piscemorpha grandis. Does that mean big fish?
So, just before we get to that one, and then we'll take any items. Mark, this was just playful then. All this Homo aqua was just clickbait, really, because it was just a playful thing because they're in an emergency and they didn't know what to call them.
Again, mixed messages, because in the promotional work, in the build-up to the war between the land and the sea, we had a lot of messages suggesting we've got to call them Homo aqua because we know better now. We know better with our phrasing and terminology. And if that's the case, we're being playful with language now. So we can call them what we want. And yeah, it's make your mind up where you stand. I don't mind if somebody makes a stance on something, that's better. But if you change your mind and change your messaging, you know, I'm more confused than ever where people stand. And I will agree with you, Brendan. You look at the earlier work of Russell T Davies, the era when Doctor Who came back. I think it was great. It got a firm footing. There was a mixture of different writers. But if you've come to this point where it's your word or no way at all, then we're talking about a completely different way that things are run. If this whole thing about employing 200 extras, I'm all for more opportunities in the creative industries, and if that's a method of doing it, then so be it. But if it's for the sake of it's to just detract from what we as Brits do compared to what the US does, it again, I'm not quite sure what he's trying to say there.
In a moment, by the way, everybody, once we've discussed the Sea Devils and that, Salt and Barclay and Kate are discussed. And I've got what RTD wanted and Pete McTighe wanted, and then we'll actually talk about that part of the plot. So don't worry, because obviously those 3 characters, we've got a lot to say. The Sea Devils has become controversial. We all know this. And so I just wanted to give you RTD's take and Pete McTighe's take. And obviously, just as I come to Goldie, I just want to say hello, Drex. Thanks for joining us. Do you know, Drex, I just about agree with you. Spot on. That's a good summary. You link with me on this one. Episode 1 was okay. I thought we were kind of a bit Doctor Who-ish. That's why most of my clips on the promising bits are from episode 1 and episode 3. Episodes 2 to 4 had a lot of padding. Episode 5 felt rushed and unexplained with loads of plot holes. I was actually, I'll be honest with you, I was bored with episode 5. It seemed to be lots of emotional, drippy. We didn't have Shooty Gatwa, but we had Barclay, and Barclay cried a lot, but I'll mention all that later. Goldie, where do you stand on... This was just a playful renaming of the Sea Devils. It's no problem.
Yeah, well, I think going to the structure of the season, I think episode 1 is a good introduction to the series. I think episode 2 is very different in terms of pacing. I can see how some people will find it a bit padded because it's more to do with the whole initial negotiations, but I have no problem with that. Episodes 3 and 4 are probably my favorite because I love episode 3 and how when the team are descending beneath the ocean, they play into the whole claustrophobia of the thing that they're in. Sorry, I don't know the name off the top of my head. And I like that aspect. And episode 4, I think they handle the aftermath of the person going down and blowing it up. And I think all that's handled well. But episode 5, again, it's my least favorite of the episodes because I do think it's directionless. A lot of elements, like how Salt is able to change form, all of this, they're not addressed. Everything seems forgotten, and everything's entirely about the whole romantic aspect between Barclay and Salt, which is not something which, in isolation, I hate, because I think it's done well throughout the season, how it's more of a spiritual connection as opposed to just like any old plain human romance. But that seems to be the prime focus of episode 5, and everything else, like the actual war, all of that just goes out the window. The war stops. It just stops like that, and there's no build up to it. There's nothing. It just ends.
It just ends, and actually his kiss has killed them all. Really, he didn't know that, but you know. So, have you got a thought on the Sea Devils, or shall I move on there, Goldie? Because it's just before I do move on. Have you got a thought on that?
I think Homo Aqua is a ridiculous name. They should have just called them Aqua Kind. If they did want to do this thing of, right, we're not going to just focus on the Sea Devils that we know, we're going to explore all these different factions underneath the water. If they didn't want to just use Sea Devils to describe all of them, fine. They should have just said Aqua Kind, which they do actually in the show a few times. But this whole Homo Aqua thing, like you've mentioned, it does seem like a whole clickbaity thing from RTD where he knows it's going to draw attention and people are going to kick up a fuss about it. And that's all it was there for. It wasn't actually a proper creative thing within the actual story.
And it leads to this bit. Now, remember, everybody, after we talk about the gender fluidity, we're straight into Salt, Unit, Kate, Barclay, and the 1972 Sea Devils. RTD's thoughts on it and our judgment of it. So hold on to your bootstraps here.
As well, transforms at one point, gender fluid species as well. So it's really
that their culture had not been explored in any way really, but now we get to understand a lot more about them.
The one where they turn the floor to water, I love that.
Yeah.
They turn fish that can swap gender. So it's all coming from nature.
Right. Okay. Number 1, the Sea Devils are reptiles. Reptiles need oxygen. 5 miles down made no scientific sense. Fish, there's a few fish that can change sex. He's getting fish and reptiles mixed up. That's the other thing. To make a point, we all know what the point is about gender fluidity. It's obviously got the presenters excited. I don't know if it's got anybody else excited. And, you know, for that one little moment when Salt turned into a man, what was the point? I just think there's been an awful lot of clickbait in this plotting instead of just a damn good plot. Am I being harsh, Mark?
Not at all. I was in, to be fair, it was an interesting part of the plot early on where Salt did change gender spontaneously. But if you're going to do that, you need to follow through with it. What did that mean? What was the consequence of that? The reason she changed to he was because she got bad-tempered and all of a sudden spontaneously changed gender. Okay, well, tell me a bit more about that. But like people are saying on the commentary, there were a lot of plot holes that never got resolved, and that was one of them. I think looking at this series as a whole, and like Goldie was saying, I wouldn't have minded even the romantic element of it, but for the fact that it was rushed. I think there were far too many ideas crammed into 5 episodes. If you'd had double that amount of episodes, then fair enough. But the fact is, they only had 5 episodes to play with. Go with one idea, go with a stronger idea rather than trying to fit too many ideas and just making a mess of it.
I mean, I was trying to work out, Goldie, who I should be bothered about. I really was. But on the gender fluidity thing, did it work? Did it land? And then we'll move on to the good old unit, Goldie.
Having seen the finale, it doesn't bode well with me, because I was intrigued by the concept of, okay, if they're going to explore this whole gender fluidity in the fish and the reptiles and whatever, that is something that I thought, okay, if it's managed well, it can work, it could be interesting. And I was expecting in this episode that we'd get more backstory on Salt and why she is a mix between fish and human and how all that came to be. But it's none of that. Again, all of it's forgotten and it doesn't come into play. And if they had done a proper backstory where we have some lore on the aqua kind and we see how they developed and things like that, then it would have been interesting, but it's just forgotten about. And so now when I look back at episode 2 and that big scene happens where Salt transforms, I'm just there thinking, okay, well, I kind of know why that was written in the first place, which I knew even back when I saw episode 2. But now I'm going to think, okay, that's something that ultimately leads to nowhere. And it's just Russell making a statement.
Totally. And listen to what Pete McTighe says here.
Their culture had not been explored in any way, really.
Right. Okay, then. So what have we learned in the 5 episodes to help everybody in the thread who hasn't watched it? What did you learn about the culture of the Sea Devils, Mark?
Well, clearly, eating. They're intelligent enough as species that they will come and take dogs off the beach and eat them. have a nice barbecue of roast barbecue dog on the beach. I'm imagining that, but yeah, I mean, we have to go by the premise that we're supposed to believe that aquakind, Homo reptilia, what have you, are a highly developed civilization that it pre-existed us, have far more technology than us, yet they are capable, if they're throwing to us that we are the most silly and dirtiest, filthiest species that has infested the world, then they clearly haven't learned a great deal in all the millions of years that they've been asleep. If they're playing silly little games by kidnapping dogs and eating them, and
I mean,
rubbish pack as this.
Yeah, they're not very good at diplomacy. I mean, Goldie, I think the biggest thing I learnt about them, and she threw it away as a line in episode 5, which is, you lot think you've won the war, but we've hidden all our great advanced technology much deeper than any human can go, so you can't have it. So basically, we're sold this kind of myth that there's some great advanced technology, but as Mark's just been hinting at, Goldie, they might have very, very advanced tech. They're not bright.
Yeah, everything is a tease. The most we get to see of the Sea Devils is in episode 3, where we go beneath the ocean and Barclay and UNET are going to negotiate with them. And then we see these big bubbles, these big membranes, which house all these different areas underwater. And we see some different kinds of fish. And we get some references to the fact that all the different fishes, they all swim in these different groups, and we get some teasers of that, but ultimately we don't really get much. This whole series in a way feels like a teaser or a trailer for something else that's going to come in the future, but we know it's not going to come. So it's rather disappointing. And again, it is annoying because these episodes are a lot longer than Doctor Who. Well, not a lot longer, but you have one story spread out across 5 episodes. You have way more time to actually explore the story. And as Classic Who does, even 4 episode stories in Classic Who, even they are able to take advantage of the time they have and explore the story and all the different components. But with this, which is nearly 5 hours, there's a lot of things in here which doesn't, they don't need to be here. Like Kate, all of that doesn't need to be in here. If you add up all the runtime, that's probably like half an hour. Take that out and explore some more, because again, there's a lot of good stuff in here. And I've been praising it for the past 2 weeks, because I think in the first 4 episodes, there's a lot of great concepts, but then they just lose focus.
I felt we had an awful lot of emotional dripping, but not much action. And I think you need a balance. As I've always joked about Star Trek Discovery, they're running down a corridor, Armageddon's facing them, and they start to say, "John, I'm really proud of you. How are you doing, love? Oh, great. You've done well since you've been dumped by your boyfriend. I'm really going for all this crap." It's like, get on with it. So, chill pill, Brendan. Oh, I miss them. Worbs, maybe I was watching something else, but I saw no engaging plot. I said I was bored. No interesting, exciting story. It went all over the shop. I agree with you, Worbs, there. In fact, nothing that would hold interest for a new audience at all. If anybody could see a watch-along in my household tonight, Jamie's on one settee, I'm on the other, and I kept looking across, and I kept saying, is this for real? Are they really doing this with the last episode? Are they wasting time in a pub? Are they wasting time crying there? By the way, everybody, Ncuti Gatwa hasn't left. Russell Tovey has regenerated from him because the crying continues. It's the same character as the 15th Doctor. It's just the blooming same. Nothing's changed. So chill. That video was supposed to chill me down. That didn't work. Shock horror. Mark, I can tell your partner's there, and I can tell he must have similar opinions, surely.
Like I said earlier, he walked out.
He left. Right. Okay, so we're going to get to Salt. Oh, here we go. This is when it gets really
Strange,
salty.
alien, terrifying space.
First thing is, let me just show you this. It made me laugh. If you want to come in, both of you, after this, it's up to you.
But they do feel like a family, like they love each other and get on to, and they're a proper little gang. The thing is, you invest in this group of people, and then you watch them go through hell, and that's...
Family vibe, Mark. Did you love this unit crew? I noticed they were mostly all women. 2 wheelchair bound as well. So there's 2 wheelchair users, and then there's a lot of women militia, and we know how they operate, like Kate. I didn't feel a family vibe at all. I know what they were trying to say, Mark, because if people didn't watch it, as Mark will have seen, Shirley goes, "Are you sure?" I think Christopher would have been proud of you, Kate. And I think, is that a family vibe? It sounds like patronising crap to me.
You got a token scene about 3/4 of the way through the last episode where you've got Barclay sitting around with the core unit team. And that was kind of the first time I really thought, oh, well, if we'd had a focused small group like that you could have carried all the way through, I could have believed that about a family vibe. I could have believed, oh, well, let's focus in on this core group of the unit team. Okay, Barclay's a new element to it. We could have explored that a bit more. But on top of that, you've got a prime minister, you've got two or three, you've got an American military guy who's trying to get us to take on this severance campaign with his cronies. You've got all sorts of other characters in there, and I think the trouble is when you introduce more and more and more characters, you start to be confused of where am I supposed to be looking here? Who am I supposed to be concentrating on? Am I supposed to be concentrating on Salt and Barclay? Am I supposed to be concentrating on Kate, Lethbridge Stewart, and the unit family? I could have believed it had we had a little bit more of a self-contained cast. But I think they spread themselves too thinly with who we were trying to keep up with and where.
He doesn't learn. In 20 years, he's not learned. I agree with you, Mark. I mean, just for those who didn't watch it, right, in the first 20 minutes, are we focusing on the severance subplot? Are we focusing on Barclay's stress? Cries a lot. Are we focusing, and his ex-wife's giving him a jip. Are we focusing on Kate's therapy? Because we seem to jump in time. She's had time. Suddenly, the world's facing Armageddon. Antarctica is melting. Shock horror. All that's happening. It's our fault, by the way, because as they said, we started it first. Oh, they sound so advanced. Do we focus on Kate's therapy? The Prime Minister and Kate, that intrigue? Or do we focus on Barclay and Salt? All over the shop. And on top of this, Goldie, didn't you love the unit family vibe?
No, I've never been connected to any of the people within this group. Again, Kate, she's been in the Hooniverse for, what is it, going on 13 years now. And I still don't care for her any more than when she's introduced in The Power of Three. She's so bland. She takes up so much runtime in this. But at the same time, it's not really used well because I don't think Gemma Redgrave is that good of an actress, really, because there's only so many times I can blame the writing. But then I have to consider, right, she's been written for by Stephen Moffat, then Chris Chibnall, now Russell T Davies, and she's still the same. So, no, I think the problem does lie with her somewhat. And so I don't really care for her. We don't really get to see much more of, what's her name, Shirley. I don't really care for her. I don't care for Colonel Ibrahim. So I think if they wanted to have some generic unit placeholder there, then fine. But I don't really think we should have seen as much of this unit team as we do, because again, nothing comes from it. And I would have preferred if we'd had Barclay, Salt, we'd had maybe one person from unit. The whole thing with the rich guy trying to buy his way into government so he can change things for his own benefit, that again didn't really need to be there. I can see why it was done there, to why his character was put in this show, because he shows the idea of how people take advantage of these huge crisis events and all that. So I get that. But again, it's just how it's handled, especially in this finale where, oh, there's this group and they killed him, but we never really find out who that person is. Goes and kills him. It's just another mysterious group of people. It's not wrapped up well. And here's the thing, like this whole series is nearly 5 hours long. And in some ways it should be shorter, but in some ways it feels like it should be longer, because everything just you know, it just runs off in this finale.
I have to say now, cynically, when I look at those 5 episodes, I start to think the 5 episodes were invested in by RTD for the sake of one-line jokes or one-line messages. So, for example, tonight, everybody, in episode 5, there was a cut-in line because they were arguing in the blooming Empress Hall with Homer Aqua. They were arguing about the 5-year time duration it will take. You know, we're going to be melting the icebergs. We're going to be doing this. You've got 5 years to sort this out, and we're not messing. And then there's a little jibe by our family unit team. The one who went to St. Andrews, she's a right cower. And she was saying, you know, she said, she just turned to the, not to the camera, but she kind of turned away from all the unit mob talking. And she said, we couldn't clean the River Thames in 5 years. And I thought, oh, for God's sake, do we mention the Ganges? Do we mention anywhere else in the world? No. Ka-ching! A bit of a political argument. We've just invested loads of Doctor Who money, siphoned it to make a rant. Well done, RTD. I'm so proud of you. So here we go. So we had the unit vibe
in this group of people, and then you watch them go through hell.
Yeah, we went through hell as well. You don't care. That was. Now, Goldie, honestly, you're going to have to retreat from your position. Honestly, didn't you realise? Wait till you, RTD said, Gemma Redgrave is gorgeous. She's gorgeous and she's limitless. Here we go.
And there's a great scene in episode 5, which is Kate meeting her psychiatrist. That's such a laugh. It's like she shows sides to her you've never seen before, and she's so limitless in what she does. It's very hard to give Kate more to do when the doctor's there.
There you go. I'm going to start on you, Goldie. Eat your words now. Honestly, you haven't realised her potential.
Yeah, I must have something wrong with me. I must, because isn't she just so marvellous, just so brilliant, just so limitless? Oh, that scene with her psychiatrist, so funny. So, oh my God, it's so ridiculous at this point. I want this character to go. I don't want Kate to be in Doctor Who anymore. Get someone else. The fact that she's the Brigadier's daughter is just so insulting. They couldn't have got a better actress to play this role. She's so bland, she's so boring. Why is she here? Why does she exist? Curse you, Chibnall, for writing her into existence.
Oh, I know. And by the way, Dalek Zozo there, colonialism bad unless it's reverse colonialism. There was a message, there's messages all over the place. We mentioned the advisor to the British government had a dig about the British Empire, but tonight we had another dig. I'll find it later. But yes, there was a dig like that one. It was just like, oh, for God's sake, let it go. Tell a story. Make it interesting. You can watch Colony in Space. You can watch The Mutants. You can watch loads of early 70s Doctor Who that had an issue about Empire. And it just sold it. But it didn't. Ram it down our throat. And then shut the bin on our head. Honestly. So, Mark, you've been waiting patiently. Are you one of those? By the way, I did see the E where it shouldn't be. I've been typing like head to. I am an ex-English teacher. Limitless with an E there. No. So I did see that, everybody. But Mark, she's limitless. She's gorgeous. We were dying to expand her role.
To be fair, Kate Lethbridge-Stewart she isn't the worst character in modern Doctor Who. And I actually do have a soft spot for Kate, and certainly in previous series that she's been written. But I guess from the sort of Chibnall era over, she's been very underused and not in a clever way. The Big Finish team have done a spin-off of the modern unit stories, and I actually think the stories there have legs, and I think that original team with Kate Lethbridge-Stewart and Osgood, if you're talking about a unit family, I think I knew that established dynamic a bit better than what we're getting now. We're getting very, if the people, the characters they're bringing in, they're here and there, and they're mixed and matched, and they're never around long enough for you to really connect with in the same way that they previously did. So I have nothing about Gemma Redgrave's performance per se, but I think she's been terribly underused and terribly underserved by the writing.
I think it's time. She has to move on after all this time. We did not have Captain Yates, Sergeant Benton, Joe Grant for 13 years. I think if they haven't established a role after 13 years, I think we need new characters. And that's nothing even having a dig at if you don't know what to do with Kate Stewart after 13 years, I think you don't know what to do with Kate Stewart. And of course, did you notice his little thing? I've said all along these writers are dying not to write Doctor Who, but they just want the Doctor Who money. When he said, Kate can't have much to do when the Doctor's around. Yeah, I'd love the Doctor around, actually. It would have speeded up that story and would have had more action. And it might have been a bit more interesting, actually. So all this dross about another Dr. Light episode, a Dr. Light spin-off. And to be honest, Goldie, he was waffling on, talking about how, this is a standalone spin-off series. We don't need Doctor Who at all. But Goldie, I think I recall tonight, right near the end, they mentioned the Doctor again. In fact, Shirley and Kate had a little sit-down chat about the Doctor and how the Doctor judges humans, that he doesn't shape them, that humans shape each other. He just helps them out.
That didn't need to be there, and not just because this show is separate from Doctor Who, but also because the same sort of line is said twice in the RTD2 era of Doctor Who. In The Giggle, you have the whole sequence where the Doctor says, when all the humans are on the streets being horrible to each other and doing all these things, he says about how, oh no, this isn't really anything the Toymaker's done. He's just kind of brought out what's already in humanity, and humanity has a lot of problems and you guys need to sort it all out. So that's kind of the same thing, the same sort of line, but it was said in The Giggle. And also in Lux, when Belinda says about the whole discrimination aspect of 1950s Miami, and the Doctor says, sometimes I don't remember the exact quote, but he says something along the lines of, sometimes I topple worlds and sometimes I wait for humanity to top their own world or something. So that line didn't need to be in this show because it's already said a few times in the main show. So it's just Russell repeating the same thing again, and it feels old and boring. The line about the Doctor in episode 1 didn't need to be said because Barclay having met the Doctor has no impact on this story or his character. So that's just there because, oh, guys, you need to remember this is a Doctor Who spin-off. And the same in episode 5. It's ridiculous. One of the great strengths about this show is that it is so separate from Doctor Who and more specifically the RTD2 era. And reminding us of that era is not a good thing.
No. By the way, Tony Fowle makes a point here that I know I'm watching stuff you don't have to. My therapy will have to start. Tony Farrell. The question then becomes, which Doctor would you have then if instead of this? Remember in part 1 when Barclay, Barclay's next on our list, folks. He's coming any minute. Barclay says that he met the Doctor for a minute and he was vivid. And as soon as he said vivid, I thought of the shooty Doctor with all his costumes, darling. I mean, he makes the Doctor Who movie, when the Master goes, I dress for the occasion, he makes him look plain Jane. So you've got this moment when he says he can't get over it. He thinks about it every night. I thought he was saying something about his sexuality. So when they talk about this, they talk about this on the Whoniverse show. And Pete McTighe says, when he says vivid, he's thinking of the Colin Baker costume. And then the RTD then tries to sound like the great Doctor Who sage. And he says, I've left that vague because it could be any Doctor. It's the Doctor you want it to be. And I'm thinking, oh, God almighty. I wish you'd leave everything as vague as that. Anyway, so Kate Stewart. Kate Stewart, she had a therapist. Mark, when did that fit into the plot? I thought we were facing Armageddon, and suddenly we've got her in the middle of a therapist's meeting. When the therapist says she doesn't approve of her working, she threatens her by saying, I know you happen to have you just so happen to have fallen into my trap that you had an affair and now I can screw you over. In other words, we were seeing a meeting where she threatens another woman. They talk about toxic masculinity. Woman threatening woman because she wants the tablets.
I think if if you're taking that line that is said at the end between Kate and Shirley about whatever it is the Doctor said to about, people shape themselves, well, she's doing a hell of a disservice to this character who, once upon a time we were told she was brought up on stories of the Doctor by her father. You can imagine this little girl being very, excited about this character, this mythical figure growing up. And yet, if she's taking that line and then at the end is toting a gun at somebody, we're a far cry from the Kate that we saw in series 9, where she's there with a box of destruction, with the debate with the Zygons, and she makes to be fair, she makes the intelligent choice. She closes the box, and here we are, however many years later, and she's well and truly opened that box. She's pulled the gun out and holding it to anybody who happens to drop a bottle of water on the beach.
Goldie, I was trying to think. This is the final climactic episode, and I think it was about 7 minutes in. We were in the middle of a Kate therapy session. And then after that, it was exposition, and it was like that voiceover where you kind of go, well, I've been having problems. And then we got some scenes where, we see her boyfriend, her secret boyfriend, alive again. And we get a few extra scenes, which could have been written into 3 or 4 anyway. So we could have actually been invested in her grief if we could be bothered. But honestly, I just think the pacing again, Goldie, why the war between the land and the sea? And there's about 7 minutes into the climax episode, we get a therapy session.
It's just a way for Russell to put across the fact that Kate is struggling by putting her in a therapy session, which is lazy, because you don't need to have the whole therapy session, and you can show her grief in a more clever way than having to have the characters literally say she's gone to therapy. It's just such a lazy, forced way of trying to display her characterization, which is everything in this series. The idea of, right, we only see Kate working as units, we want to have her outside of that environment to show her as a more three-dimensional character. Okay, that's interesting, but at the same time, you can't just put Kate in a house, but she's still doing her work from unit, remotely. That's not a home life. That you can't just stick a woman in a different location and go, look, there we go, characterization. It doesn't work. And this whole thing between her and Colonel Ibrahim, right? There's about like 2 minutes of that teased in Doctor Who, and he's gone halfway through this series. So what's the point of that as well? It's just everything with her. It needs to be scrapped. I wouldn't have a problem if Benjamin Cook comes along and wipes all those scenes out.
Yes, can you black and white them? Do the reverse. Now, here we go, folks, because there was a moment at the end, Mark and Goldie, just before I show this section, when we got the David Bowie kind of music, didn't we? We Can Be Heroes. But it was done in a different version, of course. It was slower. Everything was slow-mo and everything, and powerful and impactful, yeah? We Can Be Heroes. So in other words, Mark, I was being led that Barclay has been our hero all the way through. But I thought Barclay was just wanting to get his leg over a fish.
Yeah,
that was his obsession.
Yeah, I think the fact that he had the weight of the world on his shoulders and all of humanity's existence on his shoulders, he very soon forgot that and was running off into the water with salt. And to be fair, throughout this last episode, I thought he's got some bad eczema going on because he was scratching his neck every 5 seconds. I thought, maybe we need to get some cream for that at some point. And then at the end, all I heard in my head was the flipper music in my head when they were having a nice little dance along in the sea together.
Do you know what I was thinking, Mark? It's people of a certain age, 1970s, Saturday mornings, Marine Boy. I was thinking Marine Boy, that cartoon. Remember that, everybody? And it was like, oh, by the way, the bits I'm not going to show you from the Hooniverse show, RTD and Pete McTighe are so impressed with Russell Tovey's swimming. None of that was CGI, you know, in episode 5. He really is a good swimmer. Yeah, but I don't care. He was like that Sado that sometimes you have to avoid at the swimming baths, that they stay there for ages just hanging around. He just wanted to be in the water, didn't he? He was obsessed with the water because he's... I tell you what, I will never kiss a fish because obviously this is what happens. Goldie, I'll bring you in just after showing you this clip and I'll come straight to you right on Everyman Barkley and why we've got him in this.
Important was it to kind of position him as an everyday?
Americans, it was completely unheard of to have a show which the hero books the taxis. Can you imagine a good American version of this, which Barkley is the world's greatest deep sea diver, and then he clings to the side of the aircraft. You know, there's that Tom Cruise version. Exactly. Yeah. So it took a while for us to sort of scale that down and say, this isn't a movie. He has to drop his child off at his ex's. The unit car isn't booked to go that way. And so they're late, and it's all a bit embarrassing. Plus, it's a much more British way into things that I love.
Go on then, go. He had a choice. He could have done the Tom Cruise version of Barkley.
One of the worst things you can do when writing a story is have your main characters be inconsequential. And that's exactly what every single main character in this show is. If Barkley didn't exist, if Salt didn't exist, if Unit wasn't there, the rich guy would have still paid for the virus and they would have wiped out the Homo Aqua. So if our main characters hadn't have done anything, it would have ended up the same way, which is ridiculous. You need your characters there, and I was invested in Barkley because I thought, okay, he is this everyday man. He's got a different perspective to all the world leaders and all the rich businessmen, and he's going to be humanity's salvation, but he does nothing. He's inconsequential because it's actually the evil rich guy who never really interacts with our main characters who does everything. So our characters are pointless. There's no reason for any of them to be there. If none of them were there, it would have ended the same way. And that is, the more you think about that and how, you know, pointless the main characters are, the more the more that this finale chips away at everything else in this show.
Yeah, by the way, Dalek Zozo, well done. Bromeo and Halibut. The war between the land and the sea. And of course, if you look at, Mark, the amount of time over 5 episodes we focused on this fishy romance, it had no payoff. It was a distraction, actually. His kiss... when he obviously, there was a very strange scene in episode 5 where basically it all went very kind of, you know, CSI, and they shut off the corridor, and, you know, it's all very clinical, and then they inject him with obviously the virus. He kisses Salt. She doesn't die because it's 1 in 10, you know. Everyone else does. We were distracted by all this romance. Was the romance just for that kiss at the end to kill? Was this genius? Just to have that, because I feel as though I've wasted an awful lot of time watching weird stuff when actually the payoff was you could have got the virus in the water another way, surely.
Would it be entirely believable that one of the sole survivors of a human germ warfare virus and the carrier of that is the person that you've fallen in love with? Are you really telling me that you're just gonna sail off, you know, swim off into the sea happily ever after? Oh, don't worry, we've only wiped out half of our civilization. It's fine. We'll forget about that. I thought that was what the hell was, in what world was that believable? And there was also this thing about how every single night he had 8 hours to break out of his hotel room. My other half actually went to the extent of trying to gauge how long it was between Herne Bay and London. So he had a 1 hour, 42-minute drive between there and the beach. And as he said, you could have gone there faster by just jumping in the Thames.
Although we've seen the level of the water, and there's our political point. Yeah, no, a good point by your partner there. Yeah, and that's not including traffic issues. Honestly, I know, he wasn't a hero. He wasn't important, but I was following his tears. I was following his screams in water. I was following him asleep, awake, his stepdaughter. In essence, Goldie, all that was an emotional investment by me, but actually ultimately wasted.
Yep. No, you've summarized that perfectly. It does feel entirely wasted. This whole show has so much promise, and those first 4 episodes, again, I know not everyone loves them, but I think there are many merits. But this final episode it just goes off a cliff. It really does. Everything feels wasted. Everything from your emotional investment to the roles of the characters to the big stake of the entire story, which this huge war, which just ends just abruptly. Oh, it's over now. Yeah, it's all just over. Don't worry. All the Sea Devils are dead. Don't worry. None of them are going to try and get revenge. They've all just given up. Even though I'm sure one Sea Devil could probably melt all those ice caps and do all that, they're not going to do that. They're going to just give up.
Yeah, and by the way, Pikehead, my partner Jamie said this. Didn't mention the race thing. He just said all the blokes in it are drips. They're just drips. Absolutely useless. Add that to the 2 series of the Shooty Doctor, and unlike Keir Starmer, I don't have a problem with toxic masculinity out there. I have a problem out there that I'm trying to see a role model for the young teenage lads. Where is it? Because it's not Russell Tovey's drip, drip, drip. I have nothing wrong with crying, but it went on and on and on. And actually, in the end, if you don't like me having to go at crying, in the first 25 minutes of episode 5, our hero, Barclay, was bothered about getting his leg over. Salt was bothered about peace. She was talking to him about making peace and an accord. He was just saying, can I go with you? That's our hero. And then later on, he's been in a pub with his stepdaughter, his ex-wife and his daughter. And the next minute, he just wants to go with Salt. When they had the big negotiations with the fish tank, just before it cracked, he was going off script again. I'm so sorry. Can I go with you? He was more bothered. Remember, Antarctica is melting apparently, but he was talking to Salt saying, can I come with you? Will I see you again? This is apparently heroic attributes. Mark, I didn't see any.
No, it was very self-centered, and like I was saying before, if this had been stretched over double the amount of episodes, I could have believed that there would have been, say, an emotional conflict if you were realizing you were getting emotionally involved with a character and knowing that the fate of the world and the whole of the human race rests on your shoulders. But actually, we're actually being told, it's okay to be self-centered about this, and actually, I just want to get my gills out and start dancing around in the sea with you. That's really all that they were bothered about, than actually finding a common ground between these two races.
I've got a note here and I'm going to come back to it. Goldie, I was wanting to bring in, where is it? Oh gosh, it's somewhere. I've lost my place. I'll come back to it. It's a senior citizen moment. It's allowed. What I'll do though is just on the last bit here is this. This might just trigger everybody, and then we're going to let rip in any direction on anything left that we haven't mentioned. So he mentions his love of the Sea Devils, and he mentions Malcolm Hulke, and he mentions the plot of the 1972 Sea Devils, and then we can judge the overall plot tonight from this. But enjoy some nice clips as well at the same time. Here we go.
I've always loved that old story from 1972. I was, to be honest, the Sea Devils come out the sea, fire a gun, and go back in.
Don't be alarmed. I've no wish to harm you.
And it was written by a very great writer called Malcolm Hulke. So it's been ticking away in my head for a long time. It's time to give the Sea Devils their due.
Time to give the Sea Devils their due. Where was it? I think it's so disgraceful that he dares to say that he loved the Sea Devils, but really all they did is come out the sea, do some shooting and go back. How was this better? How was this better, Goldie? Because as far as I could see, the Sea Devils meet humans in that room. They go away, then they come back again. They do a lot of talking. They make some stupid mistakes. I'd rather have had some killing and all the rest of it. And then they nick your dogs. That's it.
Yeah, Russell seems to be describing his own material more so than Malcolm Hulke's, which is something that Russell does quite a lot. I saw the behind the scenes of the Daleks in colour, and he was talking about the original Dalek story, and he's like, oh, nobody watches that old stuff. It needs to be improved. And he says, oh, shut up. Like, your stuff needs to be improved massively. So, yeah, again, I know I'm constantly repeating myself, but this series has a lot of great setups. There's a lot of great concepts that are introduced to us, but they just aren't followed through. And that's why this whole series just comes down to, for me to think it's a big disappointment. That's really what I think. I'd rather take the original Sea Devils any day over this.
So tonight, Mark, you've seen the promising bits that I liked from part 1 and 3, and you've now seen the original Sea Devils from 72. And my little heart is liking all those bits. And then I'm thinking, as Goldie's saying, yeah, that was that. I feel as though we've said it. I feel as though the good stuff just didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be honest, I was going into this final episode really thinking, right, grand finale, bring it on. Oh, let's get the conflict going. I could have really been in. You could have potentially got me invested at that last final episode had there been more of that, but it just was. I just don't get how you really can't compare what we've just seen over the past 5 episodes to what was shown in 1972, and I think it is a disservice to Malcolm Hulke to say, oh, they just came out of the sea, fired the guns and went back in. He showed a clip there of I think it was from one of the early episodes of Sea Devils where you got Pat Gorman dressed up as a Sea Devil in the sea base. He really had to sell it to an audience there that this was a creature to be wary of. And there he is going for it, chasing the Third Doctor upstairs and along hallways and things. And you do get that level of suspense, more so than you do, to be fair, some nicely stylized Sea Devils in the War Between the Land and the Sea. But what do? They stand in the sea and have a little bit of a face-off, and that's about it.
That's why one of my most promising bits that I showed is the bit when you see one anonymous Sea Devil appear through that puddle, grab its corpse of its friend or colleague or kin and take it away fast, and it's gripping. And yeah, I can have a couple of seconds of a Sea Devil stood in the water looking intimidating as they communicate, but then I need more than that after that. And it's the same trap. We saw lots of corpses, Goldie, of sea devils across the world, CGI. We saw lots of them in the water, CGI. But in the end, unlike the 1972 version, one sea devil on a fort chasing John Pertwee thrills, gets the jeopardy going, and I actually would argue is much more suspenseful.
Yeah, it's... Someone mentioned earlier, but this series in many ways is more style over substance.
Yeah.
Had Dylan Holmes Williams not directed these 5 episodes, I think my rating would be even lower, because a lot of his direction does help in many ways in the first 4 episodes to kind of close up some of those narrative gaps and some of those moments where it could be boring. But his direction and the way he's able to utilize the landscapes to make it feel like this big event that's happening. Again, he does a lot to this show's benefit. But when you start thinking about the actual story, and particularly in this 5th episode, you start to notice a lot of the flaws and the glossiness and all the great visual appeal you have to put to one side, and you notice that there's not really a lot of depth underneath.
Right, well, here we go. Just to kind of get you going, it's not over. I think that was more exciting than the bloody 5 parts finale. Right, here we go, lads. The Radio Times decided to have a go at the spin-off. The war between the land and the sea shows where TV is failing with disability representation. And I have to say, I thought this was quite hysterical, because as much as he wants to be progressive and he wants to virtue signal and he wants to be a great lovey, the more they go miles off it. We've said it with Rose Noble. If you want to do trans representation, do it properly. Make her integral to the plot. But he didn't. And so I'll just show you this and a bit more and just see what you think. TV's failing disability representation. As the Doctor spin-off nears its conclusion, it leaves behind a tepid, overly careful look into the disabled experience. Oh my God. And it continues. When this responds. I love my computer when it does this. So basically, unfortunately, these casting decisions are as far as considerations about disability representation go. So once we've got the 2 characters in, and then what? To its credit, it shows 2 characters, but then it starts to say this, Goldie, right? Beyond that, however, in the first 4 episodes of the new spin-off, Bingham and Chesney have been given little to do but spout sci-fi-isms and partake in round-table discussions. While colleagues casually lean over the display, Bingham and Chesney are made to crane over the table's edge. Yeah, that was discussed. Don't know why it's jumping. Right, hold on. Let's have a look. And then there's just another little bit. Granted, this is a government organisation with all the baggage it entails in an ableist society, but the war between is keen to be seen as progressive and inclusive, yet little consideration has been made to show how wheelchair users interact with their environment. Yeah, but I don't think... I didn't want to message another one on top. Radio Times, pull your neck back in. But don't we deserve more in 2025? And then it talks about you don't see them in any other environments. We don't see them having affairs. We don't see them having a person. Thank God we didn't. But Goldie, do you think there's a little point here that he tries to be progressive and yet again he misses the goal by a mile, because he had 2 disabled people, and yet I don't think... Well, she's high up in the organisation, I suppose, is all you can say.
Well, I'm in 2 minds about this, because I don't want to praise their sort of promoting of this whole forced representation angle, but at the same time, what they're really doing, they're using this whole disability representation as clickbait to get people to read and to get this topic talked about. But really what they're criticizing is his failure to properly characterize these characters, because whether they're disabled or not, it doesn't really... do anything for me. I don't care whether they're disabled or not. What I care about is, do they actually play a role in the story? Are the actors portraying them, to great effect? Am I invested in them? Do I buy them as people? That's really what I care about. And they are right to highlight that these people are just simply there as trophies, so Russell can go, aren't we so progressive? We have loads of disability representation. But really, they're useless. There's no point for them to be there. Any random person at UNIT could say, right, I've created this translation algorithm. There you go, use it. That's all they do. They're not there for us to care about or be invested in.
Mark, can you see? I mean, why two? I mean, I know there's more people out there who are disabled, but it's just that I don't know why. I can't fathom this. I looked at later on, Mark. I'll take a shot of the unit room in episode 5. You had, I think, ethnically 3 or 4 black characters, 2 disabled people. If you're going to have to go down this horrible road, Kate, who's white. And it was such a weird, strange myriad of diversity. And I thought, but unit's crap. In essence, if the message is inclusivity is brilliant and diversity is our strength, but unit's crap.
I have no problem with there being 2 disabled characters in there at all. To be fair, probably in the similar way that Goldie's just described. I looked past that. That really was not an issue for me at all. What was an issue for me is, like Goldie was saying, I think those characters were terribly underused. For example, if you have these 2 very high-level characters in unit, what was to stop one of those characters going down in the submersible and being part of the delegation underwater? There could have been some really clever, interesting ways that a character, whatever the disability, could have played in that party that went down. Because I mean, if we're led to believe that the Sea Devils are a highly advanced civilization, I'm sure they would have had catered for all the facilities for any accessibility into their underground world.
Well, I mean, I'll just bring in Pikehead. I thought the guy in the chair was a good actor. He was in Sex Education, and he had a relationship with the female lead, who I thought was great. Hopefully, she's moved on to other things. So no, I'm not knocking the merit of them, by the way. I'm not. I think, as all of us are unanimous on this, and Radio Times in a way is right. They weren't integral to the plot, really. And as you're saying, Mark, one of them could have maybe gone in the diving bell. Do you know what? Here, I'm going to throw a real spinning plate in here. You can't change the ending. You can't change it because that's how RTD's delivered it. We ended up having a love affair with a fish, and then you turn into a fish. If a disabled person who is disabled in this world turned into a fish, he or she might actually feel more able. Now, that's a strange thing, but taking RTD's plot, they might actually feel more liberated by turning into a fish. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. He's missed the open goal. I don't want him to go there, but he's missed an open goal. I mean, Goldie, if you want, I could write scripts for you. There you go.
Yeah, it's so frustrating how this entire thing's been managed. It really is. Russell's just doing all this for him and his mates to pat themselves on the back, but the public are looking at this and going, right, why do I care? Look at all these characters, they're so boring. Yeah, sure, someone's in a wheelchair, great, but we see more than that. I know Russell T Davies and his crowd love to categorize people, and right, okay, so you're someone in a wheelchair, so that's all you are. You're someone who's this, so that's all you are. But we need something more than that. We're interested in them as people, but yeah. These characters aren't people. They're just the sum of their superficial traits.
Yeah, totally. So That was an interesting point from the Radio Times, I thought. Now, just before we finish, I'll just get the lads on anything we haven't mentioned that might have triggered you, angered you, or disappointed you from the whole 5 episodes, because the thread obviously we're dying to come in. We've tried to cover by using RTD's words back at himself, so have a little think and we'll come back in 1 second. Right, okay, Brendan did a repeat. I'm like BBC Two now. Anyway, so here we go. Mark, I am, to say I'm underwhelmed, to say I'm livid, to say I'm angry and frustrated, to think I've wasted all this time on a project from 2023 to now, and I don't really feel as though I've seen gold. Now, you know, in a normal classic Doctor Who season, there can be highs and lows. You know, you get a time flight, you get an earth shock. But I'm trying to be fair and I'm trying to go wider. There's the spin-off tonight that I said, is there anything else you want to mention? And I'm looking at the whole era of RTD2. And I really am struggling to say that was a standout. If it was written by him, I really am.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, there was one scene where Barclay goes mad when he looks at what they've served him for his tea, and they've got a pile of fish fingers. Do you know what? I think the reason he was angry wasn't because there was fish fingers there; it was they missed the custard. He actually. I have a theory that he actually met the 11th Doctor and they had fish fingers and custard together, and that's why he got angry, because he didn't have the custard to go with it.
But this is it, Mark. It was done for laughs. It was done for the one-liners, for the one-liner of messages. Goldie, your thoughts on the era of the 5 parts? Something we've missed?
Well, this is still my favourite thing to come out of the RTD2 era, and probably my favourite thing since Capaldi left. And I will still continue to praise the first 4 episodes, because there are many self-contained elements that do deserve praise, and this 5th episode doesn't really detract from them. But as I have said over the past couple of weeks, this 5th episode is kind of the big deciding factor as to what I think about the series overall. And the 5th episode is heavily flawed. It takes all of the drawbacks of all of RTD's finales in Doctor Who and, you know, kind of amplifies them. And so this show goes down from, I was willing to give this like a 6.5, maybe a 7 at most, but now it's kind of just above a 5. It's just kind of in that a sort of thing. Like, watch it if you're interested, but otherwise I wouldn't really recommend it.
Right, Goldie, I've been really polite and listened, and of course, but what I'm going to say to you, Goldie, just to push back, is to get a nice bit of debate, actually, this really. I'll throw this one up. I'm ignoring the green figure, but I know you're saying you're giving it credit and all the rest of it, but clearly the audience, the majority, are saying it's not for us. But isn't that an indictment? If you've enjoyed the first 4 episodes overall, fine. But you can see that it's not working, yeah?
Yeah, and there's many reasons for this. The Doctor Who brand, as it is tainted beyond belief. So anything that merely resembles Doctor Who, which even though this hasn't been marketed as a Doctor Who spin-off, I think a lot of people would have still been aware to some extent that this is a Doctor Who spin-off. And so they're like, right, okay, we're not going to even touch that because it's related to Doctor Who. And also Russell T Davies as an individual, like 10 years ago, even though people who looked more closely into him and his writing had issues with him, but the general public did think, right, okay, this is the guy who brought back Doctor Who, and he crafted the golden era of modern Doctor Who. But that's changed now, and Russell T Davies being attached to anything is sort of right, okay, unless we get some amazing reviews, we're going to just put that over there, not going to even touch it, because we know what to expect. All of his social commentary, his preaching, and so yeah, there is no doubt that this is a very it's something. It's not necessarily niche, but it is something that demands initial interest to really appreciate, and I can understand why the general public just don't really want to touch this whatsoever. There's no arguing with that.
So I have to say, we had the Disney budget, we had the Disney money, we had the great savior RTD, we had the BBC thinking we have just won the lottery. 26 episodes later, there's no series 3 commissioned. We've got the promise of a Christmas special with maybe Billy Piper and RTD back. Honestly, Mark, I am having nightmares now, because this really needs to be put down. If this was a dog, we had dogs in tonight, it needs a lethal injection. It really needs to go away and have a damn good think.
I think if I was to sum up what the war between the land and the sea has done, it's inspired me. It's inspired me to go back and appreciate the original concept and the expanded media that I may not have explored yet already about the Silurians and the Sea Devils and all the rest of it. But I'm not saying that in a positive way. I'm saying that as a damning way that it is so underwhelmed something that I thought was a brilliant concept. It's inspired me to go back and look at how it was really good and how it was really crafted and originally made. And in context with modern Doctor Who, hey, let's put a positive thing on this. It's lasted for 20 years now, more or less a similar run as the original series, and maybe we have to recognize that there's a reason why at 20 plus years things start to wind down and start to grate on people. Maybe it is time for a little bit of a rest, and give it a rest, and maybe it'll come back, and maybe it'll have another 20 years. But if we're just flogging a dead horse or a dead sea devil at this point, I don't see really where it could go from here.
Goldie's defending himself. He doesn't have to. I mean, I think
I am bloody defending myself.
I think you've been go on, Goldie. You can defend yourself. You don't have to, obviously. But
no, I think in general, when it comes to fandom, I am kind of sick of some people who you can either love something or hate something. You can't like certain aspects and hate others. You can't, be mixed on it. I don't love this. I don't think a 5 out of 10 rating it means I love it whatsoever. Like, again, this entire stream I've been criticizing the absolute rubbish when it comes to the way that Barclay is handled, when it comes to the way all the characters are handled. And I think this episode is incredibly flawed. It's one of the worst episodes that Russell T Davies has written. But I don't think there's a problem in saying that, the characterization in other episodes and how they explore how Barclay is overwhelmed by all this responsibility, and I don't think it's wrong to praise any of that. I think I'm just being level-headed, really.
I mean, we're in a position where I know I'm used to it as well, Goldie, where basically you can't win. Some people just see my thumbnail and think that's that. I mean, I'm using RTD's words tonight, so nobody can have a go. I just think there's too many flaws, and if you judged on the last thing you did, which you should do with the latest thing, this is the latest thing from the Doctor Who Bad Wolf Studios, and I don't see any fresh ideas. I don't see anything to appeal. I don't see anything that's going to have momentum for the future. I started this 2 weeks ago when I showed you the Radio Times review. They'd only seen parts 1 and 2, and they made the point saying this is make or break for Doctor Who, although this is not Doctor Who. This is sink or swim for Doctor Who. Well, if that's the judgment, Doctor Who is drowning. And that is all on Bad Wolf and RTD. There's no denying it. It's not like I'm sorry that the Sensory has never done this, and neither have you two panelists. When we saw Space Babies, it wasn't the end of the world. I was highly critical, but I had panelists saying, wait till next week, Brendan. Wait till third week. Let's judge later on in the series. And that's what we did. I'm sorry, though, after 26 episodes, I think my judgment is stark and it's clear. RTD, although he isn't going yet, they really need to stop. They need to stop this brand before they kill it too far. You made a good point, Mark, that 20 years of classic Who, although it was season 20, you started to see the fan service. It was starting to eat itself a little bit, and it staggered on a bit too long, probably. We all moaned about the hiatus, but I don't know. Maybe they went for it for the wrong reasons, but basically it needed a rest, and it eventually got one. I was willing it on. Before we started tonight, I was saying to Mark, I was wanting this to succeed. I'm not one of those Doctor Who fans who wants to just kind of always prove my negative or cynical point. I want to enjoy Doctor Who. That is my bottom line. And
we want other people to enjoy it as much as we have. We want new people to come on board and appreciate it in much the same way that we have been invested in it. I think that's what we would want, what we would all want, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to clear up any confusion, this series doesn't mean that somehow Russell was back in my good books. Like, my position is still the same. Russell, get out, take all your mates with you. We need new people in, and you're never going to be allowed back. So I don't think that's me simping for RTD there.
No, he's had his go now. He's had his go, for good or bad. He's had his go. But Pete McTighe sat next to him in that Whoniverse show. I was thinking, no, but this isn't good enough. You're too close to each other. Finishing off each other's sentences, agreeing with everything, purring at each other. No, we need fresh blood, and that's not going to happen quickly. Bad Wolf, as my source said, will only work with the people they want to work with. So that's the crew that they've already worked with. It's not promising, this. Bill Silver, this is the thing. This is the worst episode RTD has ever written. Oh, God, there's competition. He believes, in all honesty, it's the best thing he's ever done. I suggested he was deluded. I add narcissism to the mix. It's marking your own homework. I'll use my teaching analogy. This is what if you watch the Whoniverse show with Pete and RTD on, it's two showrunners marking their own homework. It's fabulous. It's astounding. It's astonishing. It's gorgeous. Well, a lot of that is style stuff, but it didn't grab me. I kept talking to Jamie. I kept saying, what is going on? Are you enjoying this, Jamie? No. I wasn't making many notes. Every week I've made loads of notes. I didn't make that many notes because not much really was happening. Tomboy Chick, yeah, you want to be proven wrong in your cynicism. What created my cynicism, Tomboy Chick? It wasn't me per se. I watched Space Babies, Devil's Cord, Boom. I watched The Church on Ruby Road. I watched the 3 specials. I saw him talking about Davros, and the rest is history. He made me cynical. He made me angry. He made me protective and defensive of the Doctor Who brand. He put me on the other side of the argument. That's what happened over these 2 years, Tomboy Chick. What would you say to that, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, again, you mentioned the whole Davros premise there, and obviously just what we've just been talking about disabled representation. I actually think if you take that as an example, I think that was a very much a disservice to what you're talking about, representation of disability. Are you trying to say that nobody with disability has good points and bad points? You have a character there who surpassed their disability and some to become this all-powerful character. If anything, I think that has to be a praise for representation of disability. That's probably the most powerful representation of disability there. So yeah, I think that there were early signs there of, I'm not sure which way this is going to go here.
There was a run, I don't know about narcissism, there's a run of an overconfident showrunner. I've got the budget, I can do what I want, and I'm going to do what I want. Moondog Loves You. When I was younger, I used to fast forward through the boring bits of Doctor Who to get to the bits with the Doctor. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I love season 19, 20, 20. Oh, I love lots of them. But if you think of season 19 as an example, I got sick of the TARDIS arguments. I just wanted to get on with it. And there's an element of that, but here we had 5 episodes of nothing. And do you know what? My favourite bit of K9 and Company, are you going to kill me again? My favourite bit of K9 and Company was when Sarah opened the box and she mentions the Doctor for a second. And just that bit of dialogue, because it's the Doctor Who I want. It's the Doctor I want. The rest of K9 and Company, I'm not one of those. I'm sorry. So I get you, Moondog Loves You. What about you, Goldie? I mean, I want the Doctor. This is why I'm here.
I have no problem with a story being told within the Whoniverse that doesn't feature the Doctor. Like, there's plenty of episodes of the Sarah Jane Adventures and Torchwood, which I consider some of my favorite episodes of anything ever. The problem is, it's not necessarily the lack of the Doctor, it's just the lack of the incorporation of all these science fiction elements and these escapist elements that can make you view all these plot points detached from, you know, our own world. But the problem is that RTD is so focused on the here and the now and so focused on linking everything back to our world, and he just kind of uses sci-fi as a camouflage to do that. That's really the main problem, really. It's just the lack of any proper storytelling. It's just all the characters are sort of summaries of what RTD believes all these different human beings to be. If you're disabled, then you're this perfect person who doesn't really deserve any depth because you're downtrodden and you're just perfect as you are. If you're a male businessman, you're just evil. You know, if you're a woman in charge, then you're great, and anyone who tells you aren't is evil. There's no nuance. You know, every person, even a person you see as a hero, has a good and bad side, has positives and negatives, but there's none of that. There's just all these characters, just they fulfill a role. They don't feel like well-rounded people.
I'm going to say this. I'll just read out Matt's first, because senior citizen otherwise. Pete said they worked for months on that egg-like object that's going to stun. He also said it was pivotal to the plot. And yet again, Matt, we're pointing out things like rust, like pearls, all these things that didn't deliver. I mean, can I just say though, overall, when it comes to RTD and our present writers, I actually think they are over-promoted, because by judging all their diet of episodes, and there's a lot of them, they don't know how to entertain anymore. They don't know how to create and craft a hero story anymore. That's patently obvious. They don't know how to get me emotionally involved in the character. They force it, but it doesn't work. Was I emotionally invested in Kate? Nah. Was I emotionally invested in Barclay? And I remembered the bit. Remember when all those corpses of the Homo Aqua all over the world, we saw thousands and thousands of dead sea devils. And what did he do? He said, what about Salt? What about Salt? Have you seen Salt? He couldn't give a damn. Not one heroic, compassionate attribute at all. Now that is the fault of the dialogue. That is the fault of a writer who doesn't know how to entertain anymore, how to engage anymore. They've lost it. They have absolutely lost it. Now, Mark, am I being too harsh?
No, I think I think everything we have talked about this evening is very much of just sheer frustration, and you know, you just wanting you just don't want things to be limping on. and I think that's the biggest worrying concern now, is that you've got a franchise now that, for the sake of an extra few coffers for the BBC, they're just gonna let it limp on, rather than take a considered back step and say, let's look at the bigger picture. Where have we lost our engagement with not just general viewers, but our fan base, who you rely on to keep this content going, to sell your merchandise to, and whatever expanded bits of marketing you've got on the back of that, the reliant on that. And I do think that at this point, we're just seeing Doctor Who being wheeled out over and over again for the sake of a bit of money rather than quality.
It's only been, they're using the name rather than actually showing us it. I even mentioned in this one, and that was a quote from my source, that, you know, they're using CBeebies. And of course, some people came at me and said, but Bluey's popular. That wasn't the blooming point. The point is you can write any little story for kids and entertain them. I've got no problem with that. The problem is you're just deciding that the only idea in town is to write Doctor Who light stories for 3 and 4 year olds. I mean, is that the only marketing strategy we've got left? Where's the big one? Because the big one has just tanked. So Goldie, I'm really trying, and I hear what you're saying about the first 4 episodes, but I actually don't think this showrunner and this series of people know how to engage people, know how to keep an audience, know how to actually properly show jeopardy and make me emotionally invested. I am not seeing it.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's again, it's not that I disagree, because I think this episode shows everything. This episode was the culmination of everything we've seen, and it fails, and in many ways it does highlight some of the flaws of the other episodes, because I don't think they're perfect by any means. And again, my position is still the same. Russell T Davies is he's shown his true colors. You know, I think he's coming to the end of his career anyway. He needs to leave Doctor Who. We need fresh faces, new ideas, you know, bookend this whole era and start again, whether that's continuing past this and just forgetting everything, whether it's a reboot, whatever. Point is, Doctor Who needs a proper regeneration, because we seem to have a lot of regenerations these days, but the show never really seems to regenerate anymore. It's just the same regurgitated nonsense. So just to clean up any confusion, I am still of the opinion that RTD needs to go, and I'm hoping after his episode in 2026, they kick everyone else out who's been working with him and just get some new people in, because I am also tired of the same messages and same themes and all that. We need a return to form. We need Doctor Who back.
And I remember the publicity in 2023. Bad Wolf, Julie Gardner, Jane Tranter, RTD and good old Shooty were telling us that Doctor Who's all about change. Change. It's always been about change. I think what my panel is saying, and most of my thread is, I think it's time for change. I think it's time for a new team with new ideas, and until we get them, we go away, we watch Capaldi, we watch Classic Who, we watch Old Torchwood, we go and watch something else. We go and touch grass. It's time for change, RTD. It's over. We've had enough. Mark, thank you for your time tonight. It's been a pleasure. And Goldie, also thank you for your time. It's been a week. I'm sorry about that. Thank you everybody in the thread. There's going to be, over the Christmas period, I've got 4 programs all recorded, but they're new. I don't do repeats. You'll see 4 new programs with the Detox panel, a Cliffhanger show, our missing episodes, the Bumble Snowmen. There's loads of stuff coming up while I'm apparently having a break. So look out for that. But I'm live on Tuesday with John Yulden, Sci-Fi Chronicles 79, looking at the ratings. I don't decide them. I just report them. Don't shoot the messenger. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
RTD wants Sense Sphere shut down. Those hoopettes have had the last hand up them. Time to die. It's just giving me the creeps. This never happened on finger bobs. One by one, they're all mine. They don't like it up 'em. All this walking, I wish I had my Benidorm motor scooter.